Hello, everyone. My name is Ingrid Tien, and this is a presentation at AIR-P Research Day on diagnostic severity and age, an analysis of autism spectrum disorder variation by gender by myself, Amanda Johnson, Juno Kim, and Dr. Jeff Wood. First, we start by examining the currently reported ratio of 3 to 4 boys for every girl who receives an autism diagnosis in the United States, which then nearly doubles when you remove the presence of a co-occurring intellectual disability at 9 boys for every girl. And why does this ratio matter? Because it is deeply embedded within the clinical criteria for diagnosing autism, therefore the study sampled, and furthermore the research conclusions being made. These implications thereby question whether this ratio proves to be a self-fulfilling prophecy and allows more boys to be diagnosed. Researchers have suggested that ASD presents differently in boys than girls and have encouraged the exploration for a sex differential diagnostic criteria. Girls with ASD specifically have a lower reported rate of restrictive and repetitive behaviors, but male level equivalent or even higher of social and communicative impairments, as found in parent report and direct observation data, supporting the idea for a sex differential diagnostic process. Yet a meta-analysis shows that the nosological, or how autism is defined, and diagnostic, or how autism is identified, and its variation by gender is the topic within autism receiving the least amount of research attention. Gender differences also seem to widen with age, such that toddlers aren't found to be significantly different by gender, but repetitive behavioral differences begin showing up by the time that children start school. Overall, girls also tend to be diagnosed at a significantly later age. The implication of underdiagnosis for autism in girls leads to a multitude of consequences, such as using mimicry or adaptive superficial strategies in social situations, mental health consequences, losing protective social factors, and not receiving school resources. Onto my methods, we used a secondary data analysis using the National Database of Autism Research, also known as NDAR, and we used studies of school-aged children with autism, looking at the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule 2, otherwise known as the ADOS-2, specifically the third module of the ADOS-2. And we chose the ADOS due to its diagnostic nature. Our inclusion criteria for studies were that they must have used the ADOS-2 at some point, must have both males and females in the studies, and had children ages 6 to 14. And we ended with a sample of 813 females and 3,287 males, with a total of about 4,100 children from 72 to 168 months, which is 6 years to 14 years, from 68 different studies. We examined differences between the algorithm scores, which shows unstandardized severity score on the ADOS-2 Module 3 by gender. You can see here there's the male and the female, of which we found a significant difference, that males scored significantly higher overall on severity than females, with no significant differences in age between gender. Therefore, we proceeded to running a hierarchical linear model and regression analysis on this interaction between age, algorithm scores, and gender. We found that the slope estimate for gender difference was statistically significantly different from one another, indicating that the trajectory for age and average severity amongst study population were significantly different by gender. Specifically, it seems that males with autism tend to follow a slope of receiving a later diagnosis with less severity, so this negative slope, as is expected, which does not quite map onto females. This, in combination with the fact that females are diagnosed at later ages than their male counterparts with the same severity scores, indicates that the diagnostic tools that we have right now, or in combination with clinician bias, may not accurately capture symptoms that are more commonly experienced by females. Thank you for coming to listen to the presentation. Here are my potential questions for feedback.